sometimes independence isn't lost all at once. It slips away in moments we don't even notice. The lights we can't reach, the small distances that feel too far. But behind every innovation that restores those moments, there's usually a story of someone who's lived that loss themselves. Patel has led engineering for some of the world's most iconic products at Apple, the iPhone watch, and AirPods, and holds over 37 patents. But before any of that, he was a kid born with twisted knees, learning what independence meant long before he ever built it into technology. Duval, I'm so glad you're here. And you've said that anyone who works in the age tech space usually does so because the problem touched them personally. So for you, it started long before Lotus. So can you take us back to that journey of what it was like growing up, living with twisted knees, and spending time on crutches, and how that shaped the way you came to understand independence?
Well, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for the kind words. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Jourdan. So yeah, I was born, like you mentioned, with twisted knees. In fact, me and my brother both. And growing up, we never really thought about it much, but that was in fact the case. And really what changed it all was a couple of years ago, one night after a very long day, I had just gotten into bed and forgot to turn off my ceiling lights. But as people are, I was too tired to sort of climb out of my bed, hop onto my crutches, hop the 10 feet, turn off the light, hop back 10 feet and get back into bed. So I just slept with my lights on the entire night and woke up in the morning thinking if an engineer like me, so I'm an electrical and aerospace engineer, working at Apple, like you mentioned at the time, I was managing a division for iPhone watch and AirPods with expertise in wall electronics. Because funnily enough, before Apple, I even worked at the company that makes wall switches at Jourdan. If someone like me didn't even have smart home technology in their own home, what about everyone else that might be even more vulnerable? And so that's how it started.
And so you built something that's been called one of the best inventions of the year. The Lotus Ring was named by Time magazine as one of the best inventions of 2025. But at its heart, it's incredibly simple from the outside looking in. So for someone who's never seen it before, what is Lotus and what problem were you really trying to solve when you created it?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, for anyone that doesn't know, Lotus is a wearable ring that controls objects at home by pointing. But unlike typical smart home technology, there's no app, no rewiring, and no Wi-Fi needed. And really, it sort of continued on from that pain point. So after I sort of slept with the lights on, I started digging into what is the state of smart home technology today and what do people do? And it turns out, after about 9 months of research, interviewing people with different kinds of disabilities and no disabilities, these interviews being super long, 9 hours long, essentially what I learned was 91% of US homes were built before smart homes even existed, before 2008. But there's no easy way to upgrade those 91% of homes. So let's take my own situation, right? So that night, if I wanted to solve my problem, the first step is I would have to rewire this wall switch that controls my ceiling light. I'd have to take it out and rewire it with a new smart wall switch that connected to the internet to be able to talk to Alexa, Google, Siri, what have you. That's step one. You have to rewire your home to connect to the internet to be able to talk to your smart speakers. That's step one. Then step two, you have to put a smart speaker everywhere you just did the rewiring. So you got to put one in the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, and bathroom. And that's assuming you're okay with the privacy trade-offs because it's something listening all the time. And then step three, you have to set it all up with another app. This is kitchen light. This is living room light. This is light number, 23. And this is all best case if you own your house, right? This 11 hours of rewiring or $2,000 of contractor work. Best case if you own your house. If you're renting an apartment, what do you do? And somehow if you do all this anyway, and then decide to travel for work or for pleasure, what do you do? It's not like you can bring your smart home with you to a hotel. So it affects everyone. It just disproportionately affects the people we tend to often forget about, which is people with limited mobility, older adults, veteran soldiers, and people with disabilities. because they end up spending up to an extra 4 hours at home on these types of activities daily. So that was the big problem we set out to solve. How can you make smart homes super simple so that you can convert any space in about 2 seconds and you can take it with you wherever you go? That was the problem statement.
Yeah, you sharing that delves into something like there's an invisible layer, right? What you just explained is an invisible layer that someone would have never thought of. And there's also another invisible layer that we rarely see pain until it's our own. So we rarely notice struggle until it slows us down. There's millions, though, that live that reality every day quietly. So one of your users said, people can't see your pain by looking at you. So when you hear that invisible layer, that quiet truth that so many live with, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, it's exactly to the point you mentioned. Disability is all around us and not always in the ways we think about because a lot of it is invisible. So I'll give you three sort of categories. There's the obvious category. It's invisible, so we don't think about it, but it's obvious. So let's say people like me, where if you saw me, you wouldn't notice that my knees are twisted, or someone that might have hearing impairment or be deaf. You won't be able to look at them and tell that they are deaf, or someone with a cognitive disability, sort of with, low cognition. You wouldn't necessarily be able to look at them and say they have a disability, but let's still call that the obvious bucket. All those are still invisible, but let's call it the obvious bucket. Then there's bucket number two, which you briefly touched on, which is sort of all of us just getting older. So if you just twisted your ankle, that's a common one, or it might be your mom and dad just getting older. Getting up from a seated position is getting harder. Walking longer distances is getting slower. Climbing stairs is getting harder. That's the typical process. Or if you've just had a sore throat or cold, it's just you getting older. And then there's the sort of the third category, which is sort of obvious and in your face, and yet you don't think of as a disability. And my favorite example here is pregnancy. In fact, pregnant moms and new dads. So as you're going through pregnancy, your second and third trimester, literally getting up from a seated position is very, very hard. It's literally a pain in your back. Then once you've done the delivery, there's the recovery time. All of that, technically in the eyes of the law, is considered a short-term disability. But of course, no one thinks about it that way. And then let's say after the baby's in your arms, for new moms or new dads, let's say you've done breastfeeding and now your baby's fallen asleep in your arms, or just new dads, you've burped the baby and changed the diaper, baby's all in your arms and asleep. Now you're stuck, or in educational terms, it's a situational disability, right? Your arms are stuck. You can't move, you can't get up, and you can't yell for help, either to a human being or a smart speaker, because you don't want to make the baby up doing any of those three things. But with the ring, you can just push the button and turn off the lights or turn on the fan. And that is another example of an invisible disability, which we're surrounded by these things all the time, every day, day in and day out, except we don't think about it. We sort of like to think that, it's only the people with the obvious permanent disabilities that are affected by these things. Someone like me, I would never be affected. And yet it happens all around us, from our parents to just your own situation. Like you and I are talking, sitting in a chair right now on a video meeting. If you needed to turn on the lights or close the blinds because the sunlight's in your eyes, that's a situational disability. So we don't tend to think about it.
Yeah, this I definitely could have used two little girls. So through my pregnancy, as well as you don't want to yell to wake them
Right.
up out of their sleep. So I definitely can relate to that one. I want to touch on aging. When you think of aging, as well as aging, I think of by 2034, seniors will outnumber children for the first time in US history. So when you think about that and the risks of falls, isolation, lost independence, that comes with aging. So when I'm thinking about Lotus, it's more than just a product when I look at it. It's a blueprint for how technology can preserve independence through small freedoms because you're solving for one very specific thing. So can you talk a little bit more about how you view that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, speaking of falls specifically, we just concluded a pilot with the state of New York that was commissioned by the state of New York. And we'd given it to sort of a mix of people, everyone from older adults to people with limited mobility, like people with disabilities, people with cognitive disabilities, and even veterans that were injured in service. And At the end of the pilot, at the end of 3 months, one of the things we learned was over 90% of our users, our pilot users, reported a risk in fall reduction, fall risk, and the amount of improvement was scored on an average of 9 out of 10. So more than 90% of people saw a reduction in fall risk, and the amount of improvement was 9 out of 10, which is shocking and surprising for something that we weren't even focused on when we built this ring. And so for me, that's sort of an indication that the blueprint is really optimizing a product for what I will call the fringes of society, the people that are often forgotten. So when you optimize a product for older adults or people with disabilities or children, it forces you to make your product small enough, easy enough, simple enough that really anyone else can use it too. You're not limited to just those people. So really the blueprint in my mind is, why not do that first? Why forget Lotus? Why isn't all technology made this way? Because you're not losing anybody. In fact, you're not leaving anyone behind. And it forces your product to become that much better and simpler and easier that everyone can benefit with the improvement. So why not do that first? And that's really what I'm realizing, which is all these extra benefits that we're seeing everything from reduced pain to saved time on an average of 60 to 90 minutes every day because of Lotus, to fall reduction. None of these things were things we were trying to do. We were just trying to make life easier using a product that was keeping the user first instead of optimizing for the maker of the product, which is what tends to happen. The engineers that are making the product optimize for what makes sense to them most. And so that's really the answer in my mind, which is everyone, why not optimize for the end user first, often forgotten.
Like so many gyms that you just shared, I know there are people that are listening who, feel connected to what it is that you all are, not just what you all are building, but you said it perfectly, what you all are enabling in so many different areas. So how can they follow along with your work? If there's an upcoming pilot, how can they find out about that and just stay close to the journey? Where can they find you all and how can they get involved?
Thanks. Yeah. So we're called Lotus. The ring is called the Lotus Ring. Our mission in a nutshell is to build any technology that anyone can use, but by optimizing for older adults and disability first. And so if that resonates with you, if that mission resonates with you, or you just want to try the product, we actually have a pilot going on right now as we speak. And so you're welcome to reach out to us at hello@getlotus.com, or feel free to reach us on LinkedIn. Feel free to just follow me on my account or our page, the company page on LinkedIn as well. If you're interested in watching videos or photographs of the product or people using it, then follow our Instagram and YouTube accounts. But really following us in any which way, you'll be able to keep track of progress. If you're interested in participating in the pilot, just email us at hello@getlotus.com.
Thank you so much for what it is that you are doing and your team at Lotus, the incredible work that you all are doing to reimagine independence for everyone. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey. And just, it's a reminder of the independence is freedom, the ability to move through life on your own terms, to do what matters most in the way that feels right for you. Through your work, you're unlocking a future built on confidence, simplicity, and peace of mind. And so we want to thank you for taking us along that journey and for all the work that you all continue to do.
Thanks for having me, Jourdan. Pleasure to be here.
This is Interconnected with Jourdan.